So let me hear you. Good and loud. All right, Gary. On one. On two. On three. Take me out to the...
The Monday Morning Quarterback on the 1st of October 2018. This is our first broadcast, obviously, of October from WBRN Radio and on the Boston Red Network. We've been busy around here this weekend. We covered the International Podcasting Day podcasts. They were podcast live. We appreciate of the people that organized it. Podcasters from various countries. It was truly international, from Mexico to Puerto Rico not being a country, but in various languages, English, Espanol, people from China and people from Australia, etc. It was still basically what we call English-centric and Western-centric. Now, when we look at internet radio, podcasting being one part of it, there is a slow evolution, or a very quick evolution, to digital broadcasts. More and more people now broadcasting via Facebook, via Twitter, a short broadcast on Twitter, but Facebook. Roland Martin, the veteran from BET, and out of Washington, D.C., now has his, what is termed digital broadcast, reaching his people using, obviously, their own websites, as we do at bostonred.org. Now, we've not originated one from bostonred.org. That will happen. That will come. And, of course, the old standby YouTube. We are on YouTube. The Boston Red franchise is there. Virtually all of our programs are on YouTube. I think with the exception of All About Sports is not there, and that is one that we are developing. I think we've done one or perhaps two broadcasts of it. You can check it out. And BR on the World, I say international broadcast, we need to do some work on it. So there are a few things we need to work on internally, but more specials like the State of Podcasting, that was done on the 30th of September. The broadcast we referred to earlier was 2 days, actually, Friday and Saturday, and it started early in the morning, Pacific time, and ended up on Saturday night. And also it was the last day, Sunday night, Saturday and Sunday, you get it right here in a minute. Anyway, nonetheless, Sunday was the end of the regular 2018 baseball season. Don't forget that. But we have two divisions to decide. The first game will be in Wrigley Field between the Cubs and the Brewers of Milwaukee. The second game will be, I believe, in Los Angeles. We'll get to sports and do this one. And the Rockies of Colorado, Rockies of Denver. So those will be for the respective championships of the West and the Central of the National League. The American League championships are already decided. In the East is Boston. In the Central, Cleveland. And I believe in the West, Houston. And then we'll go to some wild cards. If we have those, we'll get to that in a minute here. And we say goodbye to the catcher for the Minnesota Twins, Joe Muller. I hope I pronounced his name right. Anyway, nonetheless, he is saying goodbye. He had played another position, but he put on the old catcher's deal there. I say deal. I guess it's the proverbial catcher's. He didn't have the mitt, but he did have the catcher's uniform there. I should go to it to do this, but anyway, in sport we will do it out there. I had a picture of him, emotional. Joe Muller. I'll get him right in a minute here. Yeah, he had on the proverbial catches just to come up to say goodbye to the fans there in Minnesota. Oh, he joined his dad, who is actually the coach of the Minnesota Twins. And let's see what else. Basically, he had on the catcher's attire, we'll call it that, and let it go there. And his words, we don't have those. Perhaps we'll have those at somewhere around here. But anyway, we'll get to that. I was just overwhelmed with joy to have an opportunity like this. That's basically what he had to say, standing on the steps of the dugout there on the steps while Muller put on his equipment. He emerged from the dugout, walked to home plate with the suspense going on. He hasn't worn the catcher's gear since 2013, but he did have the gear on, so that's the end of that particular situation. We have a number of deaths to report here out of, let's see, we should have this out of Chicago. Get this right here. Actually, from the New York Times. One was the last poster child for the March of Dimes. Pam Henry, a journalist, died out in Jerry Pippin's very red state of Oklahoma, and I believe Buddy Guy was the other one that passed. If we go to the Times here, we had it earlier. In fact, I put it on social media. And I suppose we have to go to social media to find anything these days, but nonetheless, it should be here. Let's see. Well, we'll see. Well, I assume it's not here. I think that was, I want to say that was, well, I don't want to get the wrong person dead here. The blues singer out of Chicago, and this is an embarrassment here. I don't want to take a break. I want to break on here and for some reason it slipped away from me. Anyway, nonetheless, it is there, and we'll go on and we'll get it later here. From our friend H, I believe it was H, that put this up from the Arkansas Times. It's a blog there. But on the Kavanaugh case, that he raised questions before the women came forward. The FBI, of course, is investigating Kavanaugh. It's worth looking into the New York Times, how Kavanaugh has been less than credible. The American Bar Association, now this is 11 years ago, or 12 years ago actually, said it was a problem during his nomination to the appellate court. Coincidentally, he and the Bush administration opposed afterwards visiting I remember that the ABA's as an evaluator of judicial appointees. At least Kavanaugh had a low regard of the ABA until Thursday, when he was involved with the ABA's well-qualified rating of him for the Supreme Court. Since his testimony, the ABA's president has urged a delay in his confirmation period there. And here's more on his years as a political street fighter, we'd say as a political hack, and everybody knows it. Meanwhile, more people have emerged to question Kavanaugh, including a classmate at Yale, Lynn Brooks, who described herself as a Republican and who stayed silent until his testimony there. Deborah Rumaz, who made one of the more sexual allegations against Kavanaugh. Brooks said Kavanaugh was bluntly lying about his drinking. I watched the whole hearing, and a number of my Yale colleagues and I were extremely disappointed in Kavanaugh's characterization of himself and the way that he avoided the excessive drinking. Specifically, there is no doubt in my mind that while at Yale, he was a big partner after drinking to excess, and there he had to be a number of nights when he was where he does not remember. In fact, I was a witness to the night that he got into a fraternity, in very small print here. He was stumbling and stuttered in a ridiculous costume. This was an induction, I guess, saying really drunk things. I can almost guarantee you that there was no way he remembered that that night. There were a lot of emails and a lot of texts flying around about how he was lying in the Judiciary Committee. But never mind drinking. The moment put aside, the sexual assault allegation for free women who submitted sworn statements. Of course, you've already heard about this, but this is not a very good thing, and they go on in the blog here to Tom Cotton, the alleged senator from Arkansas, effectively branded all women as liars, as stupid political pawns, and wanted to vote now. And the other one, Bozeman, that's the other senator, fell in line with the delay, so that due diligence would be exhausted. But how sincere is he about that? And this is from a TV station there, KCTHY. Bozeman said the allegation against Kavanaugh merit additional investigation or inquiries, I suppose. He's talking about here. I don't know if we have anything from him or not. This will be back. Uh-oh. Anyway, we lost the station, so I suppose we'll just have to do without. Anyway, that was basically what he had to say. Kavanaugh, that is. Trying to load the video. I'm not sure we'll be able to load it. Anyway, we just have to forget about what he had to say and move on. There is an additional the cut. This is where the Yale classmate called him out here after the second woman, Deborah Ramez, I always mispronounce it, came forward to accuse him. Nonetheless, after hearing the testimony, other classmates have spoken out, telling Chris Como Thursday that she's extremely disappointed. This is Lynn Brooks. We won't repeat what Lynn Brooks, had to say about that when asked about Chris Dooley. He's a former NBA player and a friend of Kavanaugh's, who said he never even came close to blacking out at Yale. Brooks described a party she remembers at which both men were very drunk. They were both stumbling around there, so nothing new there. This is not a case about drinking practices. It's about proving whether Kavanaugh has a character to serve on the Supreme Court, she noted. It's about the truth. Brooks said, and I will tell my boys as their coach, that winning isn't everything. It should be about how you play the game. That's Lynn Brooks there. And so she is out there, and he has got the problems. Anyway, nonetheless, here, this is from the Times. Number of migrant children have been moved from Kansas and New York across the country to Tornillo, Texas, where they're in these little organized tents. They have facilities there. They're not being schooled in anything. They have some workbooks. This is about 35 miles southeast of El Paso, Texas, on the Mexican border. So it was opened in June for 30 days with a capacity of 400. Now they have a capacity of, or have almost 4,000. That's 3,800 children that are there, which is an unfortunate problem. This incident is from the New York Times. The mass transfers were raising alarms among immigration advocates, who were also concerned about the lengthy period of time are spending these migrant children in federal custody. Roughly 100 shelters that have until now been the main locations for housing the children that are licensed and are monitored by the state welfare authorities. The 10th city in Toronto, on the other hand, is unregistered except for guidelines created by Health and Human Services. For example, schooling is not required, as it is a regular, migrant children's shelter. Mark Greenberg, who oversees the case of migrant children under Barack Obama, helped to craft the emergency shelter guidelines. He said the agency tried to the greatest extent possible to ensure conditions in facilities like this one at Tornillo would mirror those in regular shelters, but there are some ways in which that's difficult or impossible. Several shelter workers actually were moved to tears because of little children's move to Texas is meant to be temporary rather than send new arrivals there. The government is sending children who are likely to be released soon and will spend less time there mainly older children, 13 to 17, are considered close to being placed with sponsors. Many of these children have relatives or people that know their families or people that are willing to sponsor them. We put this on social media, and let me, while we're at the times here, we'll get the names here of the, we hope, of the singer out of Chicago. And it should be staring us there. It usually is, but for some reason we don't see the obits. This is the front page of the Times, and usually we have somewhere at the bottom these currencies. And here we, well, oops, no, wrong one. That was Kavanaugh. He hasn't made it very yet. His political obits, I suppose, is coming and coming soon, no doubt, to a whatever near you. This broadcast has been by frequently visited. Let's take a station break here. Okay, we had Otis Rush dead at 83 in Chicago. And let's see who else we had here. Pam Henry, she was the last poster child, died at 68 for the March of Dimes. And I'm not certain who else we had. I think we'll leave the obituaries as such here. Period. Anyway, that was the obits. So let's go now to the Washington Post and the new NAFTA treaty, which this is between the countries of Canada and Mexico, sending a new NAFTA treaty. It was agreed to on a Sunday. The new treaty preserves a three-country format. Of course, it'll have to be passed by Congress in the U.S., in Canada, and the parliaments in Canada and in Mexico. The new government, of course, will be in Mexico under Lopez Obrador. So we'll see where it goes, period. And that will be done, the ratification, next year. And let's see, 2/3 of the $3.9 trillion in goods that the U.S. buys and sells globally. After 20 months, he's uppinned with countries. This is the overall trade policy, period. And this is in shambles, the trade policies in basic shambles. The administration insisted they'll need to release the text of the New Deal with both countries are only Mexico. Well, that was by the 30th of December, which just passed. But the new government there, of course, under Manuel Lopez Obrador, will take office next year. Obrador said Friday that he would not try to reopen talks, calling into question the validity of the negotiated self-imposed deadline. The fact that the administration is so eager to press to a deep deal, the statement that he had no intention of renegotiating, suggesting that the real question here is for a deal to wave around during the next month of the midterm campaign. So that's from Phil Levy. He was with G.W. Bush. The New Deal preserves the regional economies unit that enabled North American manufacturers, particularly automotive industry, to compete globally. Canada and Mexico rank first and second amongst export markets for U.S. companies. The total trade with two companies last year topped $1.1 trillion. The agreement requires that 75% of vehicles granted duty-free treatment be made in North America versus the 62.5% mandate, roughly a little over 10% there, and let's see. It requires a greater use of domestic steel and other materials, establish new requirement for work to be performed by those who earn at least $16 an hour, which would benefit the U.S. and Canada at the expense of Mexico. We'll see how that one works out. But the devil is always in the details, period. That was from the Washington Post. Fight over Kavanaugh intensifies. Confusion over limits imposed on the FBI. The FBI's investigation meant to defuse the explosive conflict over Kavanaugh sparked a new round of partisan combat Sunday as White House appeared to retain sharp limits on the probe, even as Trump and the Republicans publicly agreed otherwise. Two officials at the White House had not placed any limits on the investigation to claims of sexual assaults leveled against Kavanaugh. The statement made by the press secretary Huckabee and the counsel Kellyanne Conway followed reports that federal investigators are pursuing allegations by two women, but not the third, who signed a sworn statement accusing Kavanaugh of sexually aggressive behavior. Trump tweeted late Saturday that he wanted the FBI agents to interview whoever deemed appropriate at their discretion. But a senior U.S. official, speaking on condition of anonymity to describe the internal conversations, confirmed Sunday that Swednick is not expected to be interviewed, and said interviews pertaining to the other allegations will be limited to Kavanaugh, the first two accusers, and people who have identified as present at the incident. Now, the White House counsel is directly involved in guiding the investigation, and this has been in frequent touch with Republican senators about its scope. Now, this situation is, if the administration tries a cover-up, there's a problem. Senator Feinstein wrote to Rogoff and Wary, he's at the FBI director, on Sunday, asking for a copy of any written directive sent to the investigators. Other Democrats have also went in there. Senator Coons, he's of Delaware, said in an MSNBC interview Saturday that there are multiple allegations currently in front of the committee, and I think it's not hard to figure out the universe of witnesses going forward there. So in other words, this will be a contention all the week, and then new people come out here. Conway, she was on the State and Nation, said it's not meant to be a fishing expedition. Well, it doesn't have to be a fishing expedition. There are more and more people coming forward. And whether or not the FBI investigates them, we can assume that their statements are in the press or affidavitized. Get that right in a minute here. Ramez, she alleges that a drunken Kavanaugh exposed himself and shoved his they actually said his penis in her face in the front of a group of people. So it's kind of interesting here. And then we also have Elizabeth Ransor, an attorney, one potential witness. Elizabeth Ransor said her client had been contacted by the FBI to speak repeated offers to cooperate. Roberta Kaplan said of her client, who is in a relationship with the judge was in a relationship for 3 years, had been notified the Judiciary Committee several times about her offer of assistance. Ransar last week publicly challenged judge's statement that he had not recalled roughhousing taking place with women while at Georgetown Prep. It's in Montgomery County, Maryland. In an interview with The New Yorker, Ransar said she felt morally obligated to reveal that Judge had told her a very different story. In other words, Judge is a pathological liar, recounting an incident that involved multiple boys having sex with a drunken woman. Ransar said the Judge said the encounter was consensual and he did not name the others involved. But Ransar was disturbed by the story and felt it undermined Judge's claim about the sexual innocence of those at Georgetown Prep. Judge's attorney told The New Yorker that her client categorically denies Ransar's account. So in other words, there's a lot of people going on here. Charlie Ludington, a former varsity basketball player and a friend there, told the Post Sunday that he plans to deliver a statement to the FBI's field office in Raleigh on Monday, detailing violent drunken behavior by Kavanaugh in college. So, I mean, this thing involves like Ludington, an associate professor at the University of North Carolina, provided a copy of the statement to the Post. In it, Ludington said in one instance, Kavanaugh initiated a fight that led to an arrest of a mutual friend. When Brett Kavanaugh got drunk, he was often belligerent and aggressive. On one of the last occasions, I purportedly socialized with Brett Kavanaugh. I witnessed him responding to a semi-hostile remark, and not by diffusing the situation, but by throwing his beer in the man's face and starting a fight that ended with one mutual friend in jail. Ludington said he was deeply troubled by Kavanaugh's appearing to bluntly mischaracterize his drinking in the Senate testimony. I do not believe that the heavy drinking and even loutish behavior of an 18-year-old or 21-year-old should condemn a person for the rest of his life. That's Ludington said. However, if he lied about his past actions on national TV, and especially while speaking on the oath in front of the U.S. Senate, I believe these lies should have consequence. So, in other words, you've heard it here. Amy Klobuchar, she's from Minnesota, speaking on CNN, said Kavanaugh's claim that he never blacked out or suffered any memory loss while drinking doesn't quite make sense to me, and she said she hopes the FBI would interview friends to determine whether this was credible. She added that the FBI could also interview high school friends of Kavanaugh's to determine whether his innocent explanations for portions of his yearbook entries were accurate. I never heard that the White House, either under this president or other presidents, is saying, well, you can't interview this person, you can't look at this period of time, and you can only look at people from one side of the street. Amy Klobuchar is a former prosecutor. So that sort of sets the table, no doubt about that. Let me go to the obituaries here. We did Kavanaugh, we did the cut. Willie Nelson had his great concert in Austin, Texas. We'll get to that after we do the sports. Well, we'll go do the sports right now. We'll first do the college sports, and then we'll do the last day of baseball. Basically, the last day of baseball, sort of abbreviate that a bit. Nonetheless, these are the scores from Thursday. I guess we had some games there. Miami, Florida, 47 to 10 over North Carolina, and then Saturday the lineup here: Louisiana number one, Alabama 56 to 14, Tennessee and Georgia 38 to 12. Syracuse and Clemson. Clemson number 3, 27-23 more score there. And Ohio State and Penn State by 1 point. Actually, Ohio State 27, Penn State 26. Ole Miss and LSU, it was all LSU, 45-16. Baylor and Oklahoma, 66-33. I guess that sent a message from Oklahoma. Notre Dame, 38-17 over Stanford. Southern Miss and Auburn, closer game, I suppose, 24-13 on that one. BYU and Washington, University of Washington in Seattle, 35-7. West Virginia and Texas Tech, the Red Raiders, I suppose, went on the horses. 42-34, West Virginia. Pittsburgh and UCF 45-14. Michigan and Northwestern, a close game there, 20-17. Michigan. South Carolina and Kentucky. Kentucky 24-10. Texas and Kansas State, a fairly close game there, 19-14. Texas. The Oregon Ducks and California, the Golden Bears, 42-24, Oregon. Central Michigan and Michigan State, State 31-20. Virginia Tech and Duke, not basketball here, 31-14. Virginia Tech. And finally, Florida and Mississippi State, Florida 13-8 for Mississippi State. Now back to the last day of baseball. Let me just bring you up to date on what's going on today in Chicago. The Brewers will play the Cubs in Wrigley Field at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And the Rockies will play the Dodgers at, did I say 4 p.m.? 1 p.m. for the Brewers and the Cubs. And 4 p.m. Eastern Time for the Rockies will be at Dodger Stadium in downtown Los Angeles. And the Marlins, and I'm not sure why the Marlins and Pirates were canceled. Anyway, let's go back to the last day. We were looking at Wednesday here. And here we go. The Astros were in Camden Yard, that is in Baltimore, and they were shut out by the Orioles. It didn't mean anything. They'd already won that division. The Orioles, anyway, are not going anywhere. The Yankees were in Fenway Park. Red Sox 10-2. Atlanta was in Philadelphia. Philly 3-1. Atlanta already won their division. The Dodgers had a slugfest up in San Francisco, 15-0. They shut out the Giants on the last day of baseball. The Athletics and the Angels down in Southern California. It was Angels 5-4 with an exclamation point, I guess. The Tigers and Brewers. It was all Brewers 11-0 in Milwaukee. The White Sox and Twins. That was Joe Muller's last game. 5-4. The Rangers and Mariners out in Seattle. Mariners 3-1. And in 10, the Pirates and Reds in Cincy. It was the Pirates 8-5. The Marlins and Mets in New York. Mets 1-0 in that contest. And in 10, the Diamondbacks and Padres. Unfortunate for the Diamondbacks, they were going in the wrong direction. It was Padres 4-3. And the Nationals and Rockies in Denver. It was Rockies 12-0. They shut out the Nationals. The Blue Jays and Rays on the last day. It was Rays 9-4. And Cleveland was in Kansas City, 2-1. Cleveland over the Royals in Kansas City. And the Cardinals and Cubs, a match for the Central Division there, always hard fought. Wasn't yesterday. It was 10-5. Cubs had 12 hits, 1 error, and the Cardinals 11 hits and 1 error also. Let's get the standings here For the last time it would be in professional baseball. Oops. We don't want to get the schedule here. We'll get the standings. We hope. A temperamental school board today. We've had temperamental many things all at once. Not sure why. And here we go, the American League East. Boston has sewn that up. And the Yankees, here, let's see. They're 8 back, but they will get to maybe a wild card, I suppose. In the Central, it is all Cleveland. It's the American League Central. In the West, Houston and the Oakland Athletics. They are at least, I believe that's a Z by their name there. They're heading for the playoffs also. In the National League, it is Atlanta. In the East, they have won the division. And let me just go back here a minute here. The Houston won the division, it would assume, yeah. And Oakland is heading to the playoffs. And go down to the Central. Now, the Central, that'll be that tie game today between the Cubs and the Brewers of Milwaukee. Same with Los Angeles and the Colorado Rockies. So those would be 2 games there. The Dodgers are 91 and 71. 91 wins, 71 losses. And so is the Colorado Rockies. And the Cubs are 95 and 67. And the Brewers are 95 and 67. So those are some of what is going on. Let me go back very quickly to the schedule here. We've already given the first game, that is Milwaukee at Chicago. Don't have a line on these, unfortunately. And no game on Tuesday. And we do have on Wednesday the Yankees and Oakland. So Oakland will be in New York. We know that's in the American League. So those are what we have scheduled. Now we'll go to Willie Nelson. He'll take us out, we hope. Well, he will take us out in a minute here. Willie's singing for Beto O'Rourke. Here we go.
Here's a new song I want to spring on y'all tonight. Take it home where you spread it around. If you don't like who's in there, vote them out. That's what election day is all about. And the biggest gun we got is called the ballot box. If you don't like who's in there, vote them out. Vote them out. Vote them out. And when they're gone, we'll sing and dance and shout. And she'll bring some new ones in, and they will start the show again. And if you don't like who's in there, vote them out. It's a bunch of clowns you voted in. Election day is coming round again. And if you don't like it now, you can change it anyhow. And if you don't like who's in there, vote them out. Vote them out. Vote them out. Vote them out. we'll sing and dance and shout. We'll start the show again and bring some new ones in. And if you don't like who's in there, vote them out. Vote them out. Vote them out. And when we're done, we'll sing and dance and shout. Then we'll bring some new ones in, and we'll start the show again. But if you don't like who's in there, vote them out. And if you don't like who's in there, vote them out. Thank you, Austin. Thank you, Texas. Thank you, Beto. All the way, buddy. We love y'all. Thank you.
85-year-old Willie Nelson, live from Austin, Texas. This is Boston Red on the 1st of October 2018. From the Jerry Pippin broadcast booth. We remember Jerry Pippin, a former broadcast partner, every week on the Monday Morning Quarterback. Have a good week, everyone. Good day.